Now the economy and then matters are rising. Quite been Omanpenyi Ebefasua Obeyen. Now don't forget this is day 3 of a year ni day in office. Washe Nejuma Ase. And we need to have the discussions around this. Now afi yahese said the appointment no AC air kono. I mean, has there been any changes? Because once upon a time, Dominic Ayini was a former Deputy Attorney General. Oshe Kessel to force and majority leader now. The Minister for Finance designate or not used to be a Deputy Finance Minister. And they Yaboni Dean said Omeye substantive Finance Minister. Eti eno hon komo yebehwe na yetimi anywhere dem. Pacho join your live ewo eye Facebook no eso na forward training na ebra. Yebeje na yakenkan ni nyina nso e de amount. Numbers ni 0550 567-929 0550-567-929 and no air numbers are no pay ya de air juma. But mamini a year or Prince Obri Yaboa any encomo or no air economist and then a banking consultant. Na yenshese on the appointment of Ura Kesela to forcing as the finance minister designate. I mean, maybe Ayejina say is he the most qualified person obey me a savage situation nana. Zobri Yaboa to me come matching.
Minia Major Suena, Mr. Speaker.
Avisia Banzo.
I've been committed, brother. After that, I'm in Yankopon, Adaswama Yankwa, what the woman, a Juma year to Mpom or my Ghana, so I found Mapa Efra.
Amen. I've just said now what they go to our ewo na eradigo so I don't permit that to say what so. And the kind appointment no Efra eba. Certain critical areas which mo say no ehia omampanyi ye papa enti washase say obodin no eho ana washase e de free wo hwe de aba so far no energy aba ana afei so the Attorney General's Department and so aba ana afei wo hwe eye the Finance Ministry so no aba now crata and dry by ma men kan kakra quick one na afei yeni enkomo. Also, President John Dramani Mahama has submitted the following ministerial nominations to the Speaker of Parliament in accordance with Article 78 of the 1992 Constitution of Ghana. 1. The Honorable Kessel Atoba Forsen, Minister for Finance Designate. The Honorable Abdullahi Jinapo, Minister for Energy Designate. And the Honorable Dominic Ayini, Attorney General and Minister for Justice Designate. Below are the profiles of the nominees. And one take it time, Edio Mobi Biano Ashas. But first off, yen started with the Finance Ministry and the challenges are a woho say is to forcing the right person to lead that particular ministry.
Dedikai, Mamina was it, Namin Chase for Namima, a chief in the official.
Ghana, this has been.
And then they dedicate many more Kasawo, Kessben, Accra.
Exactly.
I mean, Shasi and Kassa. Obi Bia or Mampenny be decided to say Oba appointing as a minister, no. Make us or qualified. And Tinebe Mom Penny are no tea and as I nominate to Nipa Cross or person any a year Juma. Na se wo Juma na wo beye Ghana for Begia Tuma and I say Beso Ghana for any and I say so many. A mere and crabia and a bed and a betcher.
Okay.
Bam Pempensuya media on the face of the document, you know. A ya say Ubi Bia ya nominating no where then or qualify. And I said, Ubitma Yajumano. On the case of Dr. Kinsey Ato Hayford, I think that so share NDC currently Nessa nominating the Finance Minister. The nomination a spot on. Now a spot on because social credentials ukuta as an individual were well qualified. But say Ubusamia politically, Yana campaign P mania nipa yeba appointing as a finance minister ya na and mempese obey the face of the political party. The me passion say so share changes here America say nanado eyi yewa kanufuriata efiri ho na okohe yewa Dr. Amin Adama okofa ne baya. Even though Dr. Amin Adam a politician, but politically he was not very well known in terms of MPP for ranking members now we need too much of a well known. And they say to be a finance minister you need some level of a technocrat in terms of private life, and say a human obey BBBR decision should not all be concluded based on political lines. Because and ya Juma Eden say we am from so pa or mining in our traffic. And Pempi nanka that kind of obia only too much of politics, nanka may preference about Osha you are to forcing the YE Kaka as a majority leader now. And very critical one. The mame can say and it that's so we say obey Jumano now why in the is the fact that the Juma obey no and feeling what she chemukoye baby a to sinino nyame anedin ho afofi enye sakede ne koto afi ase that part of situation no anema megidie se obey ni ene se obey onim se oyemfunso bi etwa mu a nyame nko a kede ne koto hu enti se wonya second chance no o se be som oman na onye samfunso na oye ya kede ni kwa kowie afi ase bi but this time around obey no ho no aye adwuma ni ye said the be o man be fa no ntuma pefra se wan sua de amfiri emfonso a oye ne ba kono as a deputy finance minister to era Setegbe na otwaso eye niema na te said the oye first bi no fonso kakra ba ya academic wi afiase na and the ono na Ghana fo nya ebesolmu timigidi say based on this description no you will learn a lot of lessons from Suisi and not work on him now what me manage or my knee am afa ntoma pesa.
Very well, but I mean the lessons learned in the past years, vis-a-vis comparing that to the challenges I womu say now our economy. I mean basically inflation is on the rise. I mean as at January 8, 2025. Inflation stands at 23.8%. Exchange rate, there were a lot of challenges. This is an economy. Why a debt exchange program. And then Crawford Brenano, Aje Haircutter. Ama ye bilateral creditors in Yinano. Sikan Kesesi Yetua Edema Womo debt servicing. Ya postponing a lot of them. I mean, from this year into next year, maturity stages in the we ought to start paying. Again, you are under an IMF programmer. I mean, they will have to come for a review to ensure the fate of the state. Now, this is a country. Taxes near this government has promised year free ho. It be a e-levy, ISS echo, COVID-19 levy, SSA echo. And then again, looking at how you bet me, I'm making sure say the taxes and levies are were pot, no? I mean, substantially above from Amedjadifo Ehun Atowomo. Putting all this together within the economy, we share the macroeconomic indicators. Now, if we share the policies are buying way so I promise here. I mean, are we better placed? Such challenges now you won't see. He can be able to take us through and then take us out of that challenges and then propel this nation in terms of our revenue generation going forward, so to speak, in ensuring say a buy we benye sikadia your person there.
Yeah. Say we share stage ya kuduna.
Kessben.
obi any excuse or the bed or the bema. Na and I know na met my sister radio station show kumase. And I make kasa about fish rating agency critical one day but say Abana cannot touch on most of the revenue now or so be touching on i.e. E-levy so be suspending. My critique was that say not fish area sa in Nigeria they should have informed Ghanaians way ahead answer the Ekwakotuaban. And they say all the political parties, I'm referring to the leading political parties, both MPP and DC, promise Ghana for say those revenues no COVID-19 11 one year to Obama will be here for honor.
Exactly.
Senka Ekoye NDC kwan promise ya and by now can issues with it. But even the sitting government at the time of cover those revenues nearby and on, they have predicted that Ghana from Omokwaya, the first action they are going to take is Umbiye the FAO. So my critique was that if Fish was aware, said those decisions was not going to inure to the benefit of Ghana, they could have prompted us so that Ghana, Mabunu, ni Ghana for a Kotuaba would have relied on Omunim Diana Kase. Political leaders, as some are more technocrats work, say, and ya de beboy, and Nankia Hesra, then Eddie Atoba. Unfortunately, it didn't happen like that. So we have both parties all promising the same thing and to do the same thing. Now, fast forward, Kunyana Ghana for the NDC for. What I think is going to happen is that, say, the economy is rebounding. And as the economy, as I say, Efra, said the former president, Nanado Eka. It doesn't matter how you want to interpret that statement. The economy is rebounding. So you should data and as key indicators at the can asemna from all indicators inflation, you just mentioned inflation, even though the government makes it end of year target of inflation of 15%. I still hovering around 23%. Let me even say that sure say the inflation figures are Ghana Statistical Service they buy and in December. Obviously, in November, the data are not the buy because we've just entered into the new year. December, the end of somewhere January ending. But I will share the fact that the previous month, ended in the percentage of around 23. Magic be anywhere, achieve the set target. Let's assume that even the government didn't meet a target. Yet the economy is rebounding, and they say. So we check inflation rate here 2 years ago. You're ending at the rate of 54%.
Yes.
Now you're Timmy reduce the about 23%. Clearly, we are getting somewhere. But like you critically raise a very important point in the mix of some question and say we have suspended most of our debt servicing, both repayment of principal and the interest component. You are suspended. Now, next few years from 2026, we are going to service those things. A DNA afa home. And nona, the current president, Yera Mahama, Asama also can say the economy is not rebounding. And said the yeah, Kama Ghana for Aja Adjunwade, Ayanono, Aja Tumno. Menino Aya and they say if the government were to service the loans, both principal and the interest component, and carry record na yenya necessary and and the then government economic management being headed by the former vice president, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, was very much aware that the economy, there were so many outstanding things that we were not doing in terms of debt servicing. Yet they promised to take off all these revenues to i.e. e-levy and COVID-19 tax. They may pass me conclude on when I say, yes, these are going to bring initial challenges to the economy in terms of revenue generation. And the difficulties kakabeba if the government wants to implement all of them straight away. But the current government, Akwesha tight corner is that all Kasano on my definite timelines, my first 120 days, I'm going to do A, B, C, D. Set Ghana for Betinasia. We should allow him to make amendment on some of the positions now proposal now they buy when they were looking for power. Specific e-levy. The current challenge on the e-levy is that send there you can say the percentage rates in a probably we could have a second look at it, review those thresholds, namely just a small fraction, so that the revenue na and cut it outright. Why the government continue to think outside its jurisdiction? A problem for the abishim, I'll cover up for the shortfalls because of decisions in a me take me did it true that and Yamabekoye on the part of the court.
Threshold no cry no as I say meaning say 1 more year for what they are because by practice they say amount to be I will send the BIT. For instance, who send 50 CDs. Eddie free me phone so Eddie about phone so we were made to understand the threshold between 1 CD could be 100 CDs. An accumulation in a day and Kayen tell he. But I say, who send the not 1 more calculation in now, instead of 50 CDs, and KBA telecommunication for the better be 1 CD and now 50 pesos. Ubewana got down 53 CDs. And you ask yourself, say, now Ube breaking it down, they are telling you, say, taxes, and I've been experiencing that for a very long time.
Yes. The government should be very strategic with the implementation, especially when it comes to revenue cut, Now, quickly, they must generate or they must develop new ideas. Improve on the revenue generation. Ghana for obvious say, say uncover road toll and sign
exactly.
Which a good call. But there's also a something that needs to be done. What caused the removal of the road tolls? Now the cover buyer was that it was creating too many traffic within each operational areas. What alternative arrangement and to make sure say those road tolls now yes restore compound no. 2 a day na babaye with all these free promises, free SHS, and the NBN is in crisis. The tertiary what are the options? And I buy no employee. Said they will generate more revenue. Send me recommendation. Me de bema abanen and penning for. Now, I did about Boaban and say after 8 years of MPP government being in power, all the international support group because of that quote and unquote mismanagement of the economy. Nobody wants to support you. Exactly. And Saturday way was being demonstrated during the swearing in of President John Dramani Mahama. You have almost about 20 heads of state. Even Burkina Faso are no neighbors here. Few years ago, now yes, you know one man saw crown. Share the say na ban wabanono or that natural goodwill and our point to must exploit on the goodwill now buying a was amrin no more financial mining them.
Okay.
No goodwill na yeden quickly they should leverage on the goodwill and share near 10. Now if it's about trade quickly and can na Burkina for the niema na hana no mu nyina be but court charges ne mentime ho asenti mu nyina jai niema mu be ha with the coming on board of President John Dramani Mahama and with the 24-hour economy and with the goodwill or ni niaketwa tuare or whatever the name is established
yes
arrangement so that the Burkina the millions edwomu niema be fa na port duties na se special concession rate kwana yem fama wo mu said there be traffic ni nyina ebesa befa Ghana through that obetime implement the 24-hour economy na wo eden oil say eba na say the margin now my ninya kitten isa empo, but there's always 24-hour activity. By the end of the day, in economic theory, once now who produce in the mass production, the cost of production being ebe cost. In this arrangement, Abamu Penify point to quickly should leverage on this goodwill and establish something better. Ebe replace revenue cut now or so. The second or the third point I want to make is that Emma should say Ghana and Penify take very firm and drastic decisions. Oh yeah, obey unpopular, but in the long run, it will kneel to the benefit of this country. We live in a country whereby, Mr. Speaker, Minumi Enuma Nkufo try a kankwano, Anna, ye tria a tour. Yen we are no baby ba omu wa bonti omu ye adwuma no. They don't pay tax. Mas Junior me say, Abani should be very bold and firm. Now a tour triana, omane me yen shekete, even though a yen she by intimidating force no. What do I mean by how are they going to do it? Now say Obi Abako free SHS.
Exactly.
One of the fundamental ways about maximizing revenue is that Obi Bia Abako free SHS. You must produce your Ghana card. O Ghana card na will produce no. Anya Shekran Unya Jumo Udidi. The government should make it a point that Obi Bia Ujira Kwan to to benefit from free SHS, to benefit from you can say a health insurance scheme. Anya Shekwan, Busumi Biano, Chia 5 CD, 2 mobile money, FMA buying. And I'm see a register mobile nine, Ediama o Ghana card. Now Ghana card, ewo GR intino. Who you see mobile money platform Nutria, the credit will show ahead of you.
Okay.
So by so doing, if people get to know that, hey, say free SHS, I are buying it at the end of the year, at the boa or money na name as a semi contribute to me health insurance card, and then me SIM card the me so ya configuring in the boma, and then yeniana or sorry or juma our site, will be tempted to think the money should be very small. O confess ka Omu ever complain omuntia, but yes, see a money by a conditioner. Say no, say free SHS, health insurance, and a Ghana card. Now, before you were being treated, we have to look through all this. Meaning, say a very, very difficult decision. Make us people will start critique it because of associated challenges. But to make a nation better, these are some of the bold steps you need to take. I think on Punto Beden, Ebebro man. Okay. Me opportunity call Manchester and Oko Manchester Museum. When me actually there were so many pictures Boha and in the form of slave trade. And he educated me about that. It got to a point on my name and share a free and up 7 number 8 and memory in 19 so it was a sign. Or maybe I know our financial without this hard decision. So in the era now, cut revenue way will be soon. The government must find another ways and means to come and contribute. Abama Ghana and then the one you now bear corner and fana. Okay,
so be able to Jinasuma make a crack na yes, Kasem ne a gedi home common na yedi. Memfa Dr. Joseph for being and so emblem, one a national guitar president. Na ye misan says so far, Osha Finance Ministry noa Edina ba for the ministerial position. Doc, what to make a good morning?
Good morning, Medovo.
Na empombo ko the official panso.
Fiscal say no I can say.
Amen. Amen. Me that's papa.
Now me too nka we are as a best journalist.
Amen. Me that's papa. Na ejanya babedu. Ye call campaign mu kwa abato so Ghana for to abano ediama the NDC and John Dramani Mahama the president. Andra Besiano pay one name 3 major ministers. The edikan Kessel to force it. One no neighbor Behesi Kasem and to 2 years. So, but Muna Mudidra, and pay your initial impression about the appointment into that office and Sakrana trading and so Abba. sikasɛm ne ho ntotoyɛ ni nyinaa ni gyina levis ne adeɛ ɛbɛba so mame ntio more acceptance of the nomination aba na afei expectation na yɛntoa so
yo em say the dikan omampani no wonim na so afo na ne obia ahoden na se o hwe efi omampani so na ba ye ededifo so a yen so de yehu da ne se minister omo ye no you know finance minister no ye deputy finance minister in the previous administration
yes
and no sa no na se ye bi say or insight or finance ministry no then no article no mo call opposition no so em say do di mo akotre power finance committee no
yes ranking member
say o hwe ne sadia na say we will be our knowledge or say na ye de no ato no nti na say ye benya abrehemu ewo ne mu na ye de ye hwehwe pa kese and say the stability of the local currency and the here you
okay
the bia you bit me afa so ama economy na etime gina the key indicators of the economy fapema ma dwedi etime gina no inflation interest rate and then exchange rate no kwan bia you bit me aye amasa indicators in na no aye positive aboye no eno na ye hwe ni mu na you can say we are na cost of doing business ya ka ho asema no ha dwendo na ni na no kofare by any taxes ahodwa ye dia abebuntam ye nyuma ye no taxes no say you streamline ye tax system no say yetimi ehye me tax system no ye simplified and affordable so say you be matters na yem krowa na obia timi atue bi na you prune down the number of taxes no and e passa e ma compliance cost e passa e ma ye no buy no e competitive because all my taxes no e do anim kan a all the dey bia na e ka say we should not tax ourselves out of production the try ne say so woman etuo ni dikan e wo emra manufacturers say yo madwuma na ade bi obeyi bia no etuo wi ntu wie no the bop so a ubon say the produce of you know the produce no abeye very expensive so you don't have to overprice the produce of your industries basa yenye competitive ntu ntimi nton ne niam no kra no ewo togumpu and so by no na ye mo kotogo for to mo dey because all cost of doing business e wo form e kura teye eni ti pasa e mo aban the answer ban ye ne say minister so aban uti a e said the bia no wotimi so yase na the process of manufacturing no timi ye affordable ye cheaper sebe ya at the tail end no a ya ton ye no ba no ye nya demand a ye to ade no waje wo income tax no na enu so kwesi wo no ma na ama ye abana nya ne foto a wo hwehwe no pudu kro na wo hwehwe no na de toso miensa enu so ehia ye mpa no eye patient capital si nya fund bia ye aban ebetime di boapa yopa I created that fund no say what they saw SMEs as saying na a startup capital so no yetimi aye minimum say in the previous government no mo year ya attempt to be through the Ghana Enterprise Agency na say yetimi shimu kenan ye no say foto pa na e da ho ma no de enye commercial loan a ye de be ma ye startups yi ene SMEs no na yetimi access credit ufia ye nuanom ema ene ye mema no de bia kra members make am ko be mebu okra wotosin wo mre ekra ten obanti ye ka say informal sector ene the small and medium yina wo be papa di busia free microfinance no ene even the mainstream your friends say commercial banks no now we be talking about over 30%. Na no wobeya wobetue obedu be yabusumin siantem no na nisikedi na ye consumed intina akofaka ene ho keka ba kwan be na yebetumi anya activity sa fund ya yebetumi edi asoso sa SMEs no ase na yenso yetumi edieja emfa or how ne oye ne bia me enti sa ne man
na mo share anymore. Yes, but interestingly no uti omampenyin at the inaugural ceremony I mean or mention 4 thematic areas here ni ye pa one or say business environment here ni ye said ye beya I mean a bit me aboa na the thriving economy will be dependent on more industry players and then captains of industry say omo betimi ahwe say the omo ye bia no I mean based on the 24-hour economy monso mo betimi enya hotoso aye adwuma. Now the question I ask say aban a promise say within the first 120 days obey the National Economic Forum enti ade na mo hwe animo port charges are you proposing see enya flat rate and now said dear na mo propose the by even ahead of the National Economic Forum. Now Minister Ebe at least I don't know best serve as guideline to him. Abai so be take it off e-levy and Crofoni expert started kase who take it off e-levy any COVID-19 I mean or revenue generation and expectation there will be a downfall and no a bay and country chain so kakra. I mean some of these promises are by vis-a-vis the Airbus CI how do you take it and what do you propose for government?
You and America say ya de here yan pa ne say ye bema etuo ni tuano aye krokrowa na aye simple and na eboyenti no streamlining the tax system I know the Indian plan, so we need a serious tax reform. A bit me abwa. Near yes, say, what say, Abaya also no, Eka say, or be a fixed tax system be na ye tier duty. No, or the ma or a spare pass, say, or a spare pass, and a binyasa, or no, say, ye be making, serious input, say, or replicated to the other commodity lines. So be a yinda yibinyasa ahotoni bino. Ti say a fixed was spare parts intimate face for electrical ne other areas na say amayina yenya yinti these are some of the major inputs you be making any this patient creation of this patient capital fund make come
okay. Very well doc mama na was ya no but before I be kono Zobri Yabua was so no economy. Zobri Yabua, what's here, Dr. Joseph Obey? I mean, clearly, does it sync with the also proposing?
Well, many you know, and Yama be brea, where really concerns, and so might be a fan into my pay for a business environment, and it determine acquire and as a direction of my bedding, Ebeco, and he as a head of Guta. You couldn't have said anything better than the Okayano. And Nina is in line with the current aspiration now on my Ghana for any. We shouldn't forget that. Election there, it was about the economy, and the economy. Okay. And the economy, the center of attraction or the drivers, any mini doctor on the team now, no, so all effort must be geared towards say. On stability beba now by na yene afamu there in terms of city stabilization say aban me yes anema no e de ama woma de aka no woma be ye adwuma no e de munyam no ayeden ama aban no ama oman na fa ntoma peripheral so me we shi nyina the best of luck the days ahead of us.
Yes, but when it comes to inflation, Dr. Joseph Obey Bosso, now a quite ben a yen must see the no and stabilize it as at Endra. 14, 15. I mean, that is how the rate is as we speak. And I mean, how do we stabilize the exchange rate?
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, Medical Kasa said the stabilization of the city. Now, say city now what ni be jinam pempensu jina sisian enye juma that form. But are there ever boa banwe which I've said it and I'm going to repeat it. The similarly goodwill. Anna widen when you say no. Me one person, ye be to abano na me ta kan bi. Obabia and as a president be eba both the two leading political parties omu political entrepreneurs omu na du omu na omu yeden enam and MPP having been in power for 8 years. Na woman call for ahochiraba omukom from when you know they have disappointed them. You are so the first decision you can overreact eteki ebra ye man finance minister and so obemi akọ US ni akoboro 2.2 million US dollars. San nipa no ne political friends ana omukom ye den ewo. But enam haircut any debt exchange all of them were not happy with the way and the manner of mine ya managing it into ukon ho from we bi ma on fanya den on fa ma said the na nanim bu be say the mo akwa didie ma ya yimpia foforo nye den enwum no eno eboai ema na inflow expected inflow aban ne benya amasi di na stabilize na nemba. Thankfully we have a change of government now. Ghana, on the face of what we saw 3 days ago, is in a very good relationship with Burkina Faso. So Bibi will have Burkina for producing abundance, not because of the bad relationship between the then government and any Burkina no because of that goodwill, no, they are going to make amends. That's what I'm making. Your former president for AAB. Emra obedi akunya na o man ho che no oni Nigerian, the then president of Nigeria, and niema bebre quickly they helped the economy to stabilize. I am thinking that within this short term the leadership or the new government must leverage on the goodwill no na on fan international partners in yeden emremu so that there will be a lot of inflow of forest a stability beba sekoba sa na o manage economy ni ya omunyi wo musika nko through them you bet me reduce the inflation and the CD exchange rate no ama na ba forma after bedu baby you best sustain while we continue to look out for the long term solutions na bema na be permanent na yaka ho asem na. So it requires a lot of strategic thinking and strategic approach within this short term bema yenya stability through that. I think
it's a good one, no, good because kasa no pay no. Bloomberg projected by the end of the first quarter of 2025, the fourth quarter, inflation will be between 6 to 10%. World Bank and so are projected 11.5%. That is the forecast. One more Emma. IMF said there be consumer prices no increment ne beba kakra but quote said there inflation no a jumpy na. So yes. What it means is that all said and done no and Dr. Joseph Obey, just a quick one on this na me no fancy.
Yo it is something na doctor no akano but no clear we say we don't owe this economy. Yes. And a quite better. You bet me for the past 5 years in our trade surplus. It means that the exports that we did override the imports. The imports. I didn't because export now the returns was not coming. Say this cannot because oil near the core oil near there. If you could do America scano MBU. Into much as you have made exports, you are not getting the returns. Quite a bit my retention policy be foreign company, foreign direct investors, okay. It repatriate all their profits without retaining some here. Now, so in terms of the forest, and also a very important thing. I see a conscious effort. Now, yet me making sure say at least yet me retention of about 30%, either through investment with this because we share communication industry foreign dominated. Banking foreign dominated. We call oil, gold. Bauxite, manganese, no foreign dominated, and also the juiciest part of our economy. And a passana now we need any retention, we need be a jama wono. That's a still an we seek a baby week, and I feel so over foreigners in the retail trade, Nya and Shibi, now yet me containing the excessive importation now, these expatriates, normally Chinese for you, China mode, China town, and Nongikawa. They've taken about 40% of our market share. But this market share normally, and yes, be a woman the fiscal investment to be by so many dollars by Crimea, and be a woman this dollars no air cranium. Woman the fiscal goods and the ever. No, the goods will be thousands of containers no bar. No, the Oberton of Fufu, no, the exercise your forest no co. In now the day pressure about your forest and so you're just animals here. Yakoya, a Koromi Fulma, your baby is anime now, so near Pequia, you bet me they are containing this excessive importation. You can't say importer. Look at me, a Tefa woman, no, and barely 20% too. Which import a free anybody na Ghana indigenous Ghanaians no ya tefe woman ya kra no e be 20%. It the kwan be na ubetimi do investment laws no etimi contain this excessive importation or more for correspondent fund for import no embe to Bank of Ghana name and yemhunu no an omo train ba no the business sikanoko ti ehwesa na mani na use the appropriate laws and measures may sure say you need to be as an
very well. Doc, I don't pay me that. And that is Dr. Joseph for being Ms. Obriaboa, Mamina was here now will be cultural.
Oh, right, and no one Doc as I'm rising in an or mine year, and then it's in Tina, and pay Mr. Speaker, also how much change there be a Tina memoir and now on tons to Penguin, do be accommodated emblem.
Amen. Meso das papa nyame enshraw. Enti Mr. Obri Yeboa economist and then a banking consultant and Dr. Joseph for being a national president at the Guta many or more at the enkomo about the economy vis-a-vis the appointment oman paying Edikan aye 3 major ministers and we yi womana